Hey guys, Dave Mason here from the Niche Lifestyle. Vlog 13, feedback is part of the change process. What is it, how important is it, and how effective are you at both giving it and or receiving it? Everyone in their lifetime at some point has either been given feedback or has given feedback. And feedback is great if it's constructive and used to nurture growth, but when it's used otherwise, it becomes quite destructive and of no value to anybody. I want to start with a quote, and the quote is, "The key to effective feedback lies in our intentions, not in our methods, and your intentions must be about helping others, not just yourself." So by that I mean delivery methods can vary and will vary depending on the provider, as long as the intent is in the best interest of the recipient. Okay, from a constructive feedback guideline, and this is something that matters when you're giving feedback. The constructive feedback guidelines are pretty simple. You're an expert on other people's behaviour and your feelings and emotions, but you're not an expert on your behaviour and other people's feelings. So you just got to be mindful of that when you're giving feedback. Okay. Now, these 7 criteria that you have to have to be able to give effective, relevant, and constructive feedback. So the 7 criteria are: the feedback provider must be credible. In other words, they must be either an author, an expert, or a coach on the subject matter. Okay? They need to know their shit. They need to know what it is they're talking about. 2, feedback provider is used by the recipient. Feedback provider is trusted by the recipient. In other words, the recipient knows and trusts the person giving them the relevant feedback. Number 3, feedback is given with the right intention. The right intention is a must. Methods can change, delivery methods can change, but if you're not giving it with the right intention, then you're on a hiding to none. The timing and circumstance of the feedback are appropriate. So what I'm saying there is that the context, the content, and environment needs to be credible, and it needs to be at the best possible time. In other words, if you're pissed off, is it the best time to be giving feedback? When you're angry, when you got the shits, when you don't like the person, or you've just had a blow up, is it the best time to be able to give feedback? The answer is pretty simple, it's no. Number 5, the feedback is given in an interactive manner. The unfortunate part when people who are novices or who are just learning how to give feedback, most of it are done by what I call transmissive. In other words, it's like the old school teacher. It's one way. It's, I'm telling you, you're going to be a sponge, you're going to suck it up, and you're going to listen to what I'm telling you to do. That's how most people give feedback. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If you want people to buy into your message, to make sure that the content and the context is relevant, then it needs to be two-way. You need to be able to get feedback yourself. Number 6, the message is clear. Messages has to be clear, specific, and relevant. Don't get into the bad habits of using criticism, because that's totally different. It's irrelevant, and it bears no fruit. Trust me, and I'll explain it in a couple of stories that I'm going to tell following these. The last one, and the last one is the feedback is helpful to the recipient. So it has to be relevant, it has to be constructive, and designed to improve the recipient's perspective. That's what it has to do. If you're uncertain about how to deliver it, find better ways to do it. My methodology with fucking with the facts. Use video footage, empirical evidence. You've got to be able to sell your idea so that they can see, okay, this person's got a point. Okay? So tonight, with regard to those 7 criteria, I've got 3 stories here. And they're all relevant to me. So again, like I said before, like it or leave it. In February of this year, I was invited to go to New Zealand, Takapuna, to do the 42k change with our open men's team. You know, I wasn't really prepared for it, and after we finished the race, one of my nephews, you know who I am, gave me some feedback, and it was pretty blunt and it was pretty brutal. And all he said was, "Uncle, your fitness is..." Now, I didn't get... Anyone who knows me knows that, you know, I can react at the best of times. But our finish to the race was pretty crappy, and we had a few problems. So I understood that he was venting and he was, you know, sort of lashing out. Unfortunately, I was the recipient of it. But if you look back to the 7 criteria I just spoke about, was he a credible provider? You know, number 1, yes he was. Coach, he's been paddling since he was 8 years old, he's 34 now. Was he trusted by me, the recipient? Yes. You know, I know he knows what he's talking about. Was the feedback given with the right intention? I've got to say no, because he was angry. The timing and circumstance of the feedback are appropriate. Okay? Was it the best time? Was it the best way to be able to give, especially when he was upset? You know, even I could tell he was upset. Was the feedback given in an interactive manner? No. He was telling me what the issue was. He was pissed off. Was the feedback message clear? You know, I can't lie. The feedback was pretty clear. I was unfit. Was the feedback helpful to the recipient? To be honest, no. As the recipient, I mean, he knows and I know. I was pissed off with the feedback that I got. Could have been done differently. Could have been done while we were on the water. Could have been done beforehand. Uncle, you need to do this. Uncle, you need to do that. And it's relevant, guys. It's relevant. If you're going to give feedback, if you're in a coaching role, if you're in a role of responsibility and accountability, you have to ensure that your feedback is relevant and it's constructive. Anything else is a waste of fucking time. And it's destructive. In vlog 6, which is a bloody long time ago, the vlog 6 was about dealing with difficult people. I spoke about one of my supervisors, and I told him to go and give feedback from our team. And there were 13 in the team, and he only got feedback from 5 of them. And those 5 people weren't too particularly... well, their feedback to him wasn't... it was open and it was honest. So it became quite clear to him that the information was pretty well correct. With, you know, if we go back to those criteria, the feedback provided, were they credible? Well, they were his teammates. You know, they'd been subjected to his behaviour for quite a long time. Were those providers trusted by the recipients? Maybe, maybe not. Was the feedback given with the right intention? Hell yes. The timing and circumstance of the feedback are appropriate. I mean, I put guidelines around how the meetings were to be run and how the feedback process was to be done. And most of them were done with the right, you know, in a professional acumen. The feedback is given in an interactive manner. Well, you know, most of the time he was quite shocked. He just sat there and took it on the chin. The feedback message is clear. Well, when it's a collective, the message is really clear. Hard to argue with. Was the feedback helpful? Was it done with the right intent, especially from my perspective? I think it was, because that guy changed, no end. The last thing was, have I ever given bad feedback to people? Have I, have I fucked things up? Have I stuffed things up? You and I know that I'd be lying if I said no. And anyone who knew me early on in the piece knew that I could be a pretty opinionated and somewhat destructive person. But that sort of behaviour and that sort of feedback only gave me certain ears. People didn't trust me. People didn't think I was credible. When you're constantly giving feedback that's destructive and of no use to anybody, no one listens to you. You think they do, but they don't. Now, in positions of responsibility and accountability, especially with change management and being able to provide feedback, if you don't do it with the right intent, if it's not relevant and it's not constructive and designed to improve a recipient's perspective, you're going to hurt them, you're going to piss them off, they're going to lose trust, you're going to lose rapport, and more than likely you'll lose the relationship. Now, this is a bit of feedback for anyone who's involved in coaching, working with people, developing, whether it's business relationships, personal relationships. Feedback, everyone needs feedback. Some say even bad feedback is good feedback. It's not. It's only good feedback when it's constructive, when it's used to improve the recipient's perspective. Well, I hope that's made some sort of sense about feedback and the intent behind it all. Do us a favour, like, share, comment, give us some feedback. If you've got questions, throw them at me and I'll be more than happy to help in some way, shape or form, as I keep saying. Dave Mason from The Niche Lifestyle coming at you.